Hello YouTube, this is Dr. James C. Sullivan D.O. Back again like a bad penny. And what I'm going to discuss today is the latest and greatest in anti-aging. This is a topic that has been of interest to patients. It seems to be increasingly so. Not only are people now more than ever concerned about their general state of health and staying that way, but they also want to make sure that they get into their later years as healthy as possible. So today I want to talk about the latest and greatest with regard to health and fitness practices, with regard to supplementation, and some medications that can even help you to attain that goal. Now remember, as always, this is health information. It is not medical advice. Medical advice is a conversation best had between you and your doctor. Without further ado, let me kick off this talk with a subject that is very near and dear to my heart. It is a methodology of nutrition intake called intermittent fasting. Now, calorie restriction has been studied for approximately the last 50 years with regard to health and longevity in anything from nematodes to mice and rhesus monkeys. Calorie restriction being a reduction of the net daily calories by at least 30% of what the BMR is. Now, this has been shown to elongate life by slowing down metabolism, slowing down cell turnover. However, it's not without its side effects. And what we're starting to see now with these different dietary regimens, such as intermittent fasting, is a lot of the benefits associated with long-term calorie restriction without many of the pitfalls. And that is huge. So, what can some of the benefits of intermittent fasting be? Well, for starters, surges in the amount of human growth hormone that your body produces during fasting states. And there are a lot of different numbers flying around out there, but some of the most sensational seem to be surges in human growth hormone up to 2,000% during that fasting period. And when we're talking about a fasting period, I think what was studied was a 20-hour fasting period, as well as reduction of body weight. Your metabolism does not slow down. Increased cell turnover with regard to maintaining a healthy cell population. There's a lot of what they call autophagy, where old cells that are not performing in an optimal state turn over. So there's a lot of benefit to be had in general state of health and cell functioning at an optimal level. What is it? Intermittent fasting is best not done every day. That's some people will take the concept and just run with it, and they'll do it every day and be like, I intermittent fast every day. Wrong. If you're doing it every day, you're probably not getting in the full amount of calories that you need to support your basal metabolic rate without slowing it down. So what you don't want to do is throttle back your metabolism, because then then it's going to slow down. You're going to gain weight, you're going to have low energy state, feeling generally crappy. No one wants that. So it's best done 3 or 4 days a week, and we talk about eating windows. So some people will have an 8-hour window within which they should take in all the calories for the day. And your eating window is something that you have to be comfortable with. I have been able to get down to a 2-hour window. So 3, maybe 4 days out of the week, I will go 20 hours. So I'll fast up until like dinner time, and I will try to pile in all of the calories, all of the nutrients that I should have gotten in that day into a period from like 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. I'm done. Put it away. Water, coffee throughout the day is fine. Coffee is your best friend, helps kill the appetite a little bit. Intermittent fasting is always best done with a touch of whimsy, i.e. if you're like kind of hungry during lunchtime, you don't have to fast all the way up until dinner. You don't have, you can move the time window even. Say, I wanted to eat in a 2-hour window, and it was lunch and I'm hungry. Well, I don't want to be hangry, especially when I'm dealing with patients. It doesn't end well. So I would move that 2-hour window from like 2 to 4, and I would eat. Then for the remainder of the day, I wouldn't, or I could elongate that window. It's not chiseled in stone. And that way I would be ensuring that 1, my metabolism didn't slow down, 2, I didn't get cranky with patients. I still continue to maintain all those benefits of intermittent fasting. The one kind of unwritten rule that I once upon a time followed up a little bit was broke fast at breakfast and then fasted all day. Yeah. So when you do that, there's this little dip in your blood sugar. There's a little period of time before your pancreas realizes that it needs to secrete some glucagon, bolster the blood sugar back up. So you're feeling lousy for a couple hours, right in the middle of the day, when most people are in the middle of a work day, trying to pay attention. That wasn't pleasant. I don't advise it. So have your eating window in the afternoon or in the evening. It's the easiest thing in the world to do, just to keep that fast that you're already in when you wake up in the morning. Just keep it going. Keep the party going until lunch or dinner. You'll be a lot happier for it. So this is the basics on intermittent fasting. Again, there is a lot of content on the internet about it. There's plenty on YouTube. I would encourage you to seek out different information sources, do your research on it. The next thing I want to talk about with regard to longevity is exercise. There are exercises you can do that have been shown to help you live longer. Yeah. So there was a study done, it started back in the 1950s, and the constituents of this study were about, I think, 4,000 young, healthy police officer candidates. And back in the 1950s, we didn't know much about preventative medicine, i.e. what's bad for you, those things that will kill you quicker. I thought smoking was healthy. So this study was designed without regard for diet, without regard for other risk factors that we tout now, such as cholesterol levels, smoking, other disease states, muddying the waters. This study looked only at someone's VO2 max, which, long story short, is a measure of how efficiently the body uses oxygen. So the question this study posited was, does that have a relation to how long one lives? So this study was carried on, and even though it was kind of a poorly designed study by today's standards, and poorly designed in that it didn't take out a lot of the confounders, which I feel strengthened the results that they finally saw. But this study stayed going. It was a longitudinal study, passed on from generation to generation of physicians. It ended, I believe, in the early 2010s. Why did it take from 1950 to the early 2010s to complete? Because it took that long for the last participant to die. So what they found empirically kind of it shook the foundation a little bit, because what it showed was, without regard to their smoking habits, without regard to their diet, without regard to anything else, the higher someone's VO2 max was maintained over their lifetime, the longer they lived. Yeah. Crazy, right? Not as crazy as you might think. So that kind of training that would bolster the VO2 max would actually be high intensity interval cardio. So we were already starting to glom onto this idea that high intensity interval cardio was healthier for you than something like, say, distance running. Just for the fact that the intensity of cardiovascular activity being moderate or above, i.e. you maintaining a heart rate of greater than 140 beats per minute, sustained over a period longer than 30 minutes, actually evokes a cortisol response. What does that mean? Cortisol is the body's stress hormone. It doesn't do anything good unless you're really in trouble. It's something secreted by the adrenal glands during times of high stress, and that is mental or physical. No matter how cool we are under pressure, there is still a message delivered to the body by that lizard part of the brain that says, you're in trouble, we better get ready. So cortisol floods the system, promotes the breakdown of muscle, formation of fat, storage of energy for a time of need, higher blood sugar levels, nothing good. What we found was explained essentially why we were seeing a lot of distance runners with cardiac disease. It kind of wasn't making any sense, but then it did. So that high intensity interval training, bursts of activity, 100% of what you got, leaving it all on the track, so to speak, punctuated, 30 to 60 seconds of sustained effort like that, punctuated by periods of rest in between, so you can catch your breath, let your heart rate come back down, and then hit it again. Rinse and repeat for no longer than 20 minutes. 3 or 4 times a week is all you really need to start, 1, increasing your resting metabolic rate. It goes up big time. 2, preferentially burning fat around the waistline. Why? Because cortisol is dropping precipitously. And 3, to raise up that VO2 max to levels that have been shown to help us live longer. And you better believe that if your VO2 max is maintained, I think the magic number was like 45 or something. So if your VO2 max is maintained at or above a level of 45 until the age of like 80, it's a pretty healthy 80-year-old. So that's the skinny on the type of exercise that'll help you live longer. All right, and for the next part of the talk, which is going to cover pharmaceutical products that have been shown over time and with research to stave off the aging process. The first and probably the oldest that I want to point out is rifamycin. Was actually synthesized from, isolated from a bacteria I believe was found in Easter Island. Fact check me on that one. That had been shown in several studies to have an anti-aging benefit so far as nematodes in mice. Obviously, it's not the best thing for a human being to take extended courses of antibiotics. Can be quite harmful to one's health because of the hit that the gut bacteria take because of it. So, yes, it has some anti-aging benefit, but is it safe to take? Not really. The next one I want to bring up as a pharmaceutical is metformin. The TAME study conducted in Australia showed that participants in the study that took metformin lived longer. Who takes metformin? Diabetics. You mean these people lived longer than other diabetics? Well, that makes sense. No, these people lived longer than people in the regular population. We don't know exactly how it works. It belongs to a class of pharmaceuticals called biguanides. I believe it was synthesized from lilac, and for some reason stifles the aging process. Another one that's still in the pipeline is one that was coming out from GlaxoSmithKline. There was a company out there called Sartorius. It was, as its name kind of predicates, it was working on small molecular chemical entities that acted on the sirtuin genes. Now, these genes exist within some within our genome and some within the mitochondria. Yeah, our mitochondria have different DNA than ours. That's another talk. Take my word on it. So these small chemical entities that they were synthesizing that were derivative of resveratrol. Now resveratrol, which is found in red grape seed, I believe, had long been touted to have anti-aging effects, but just wasn't very bioavailable. It didn't get into cells very well. So they went about the process of isolating the active component, attaching it to something that was more bioavailable. GlaxoSmithKline saw what they were working on, bought the company, and took those things to trial. Sartorius, the original company, had submitted a application to the FDA to launch studies at anti-aging. The FDA came back and said, aging is not a disease, it's a natural process. Denied. GlaxoSmith, when they bought the company, were a little bit smarter about it. They could read between the lines as to other beneficial effects that these chemicals would have. I believe the names were SRT 500, SRT 2104, and SRT 32 something. But they started looking into them for diseases of aging, heart disease, diabetes, because of the downstream effects that activating these certain genes, well, these CERT genes would have as far as insulin sensitivity, which is a problem with people with diabetes. Insulin sensitivity would go up in times of starvation, like survival mode. I think the only, with the phase 3 studies, the only indication that SRT 2104 did get was in septic shock. And for the life of me, I don't know what the brand name is called. The star of Sartorius was, I believe, a scientist from Harvard by the name of David Sinclair. He was the head researcher there, and spawned from that research was another line of research that now goes into a supplement. The SRTs now being property of GlaxoSmithKline, they were now their intellectual property. He went on to do research along the lines of anti-aging with regard to boosting the amount of NAD plus within a cell. What is that? It's one of the constituents of the Krebs cycle. However, from what I've read and understand, it does have signaling pathways. What is it signaling? The mitochondria. This whole cascade of cellular death that goes on, like a cell runs up the clock, it's time for that cell to die. What starts that cascade? A signal from the mitochondria. And there are a series of events that happen where the mitochondria become wore out, they kind of get leaky, and then this chemical escapes into the cell and kicks off this whole death cycle we call apoptosis. So, from the research that was conducted, what they found was excess levels of NAD plus in the body signaled the mitochondria to reproduce. It signaled to the cell that we were in trouble, we were starving, because levels of NAD plus would be elevated in a starvation state. Levels of NAD plus also activated the Saturn genes. Now, oh great, well, where do you get NAD plus? You don't. The stuff that he was using was, it was an IV solution. However, that led to more research into different supplements that could be taken orally, one of which is nicotinamide riboside. nicotinamide riboside takes advantage of one of the side chains or salvage pathways that happen in the Krebs cycle with NAD with NAD plus. So the ribose is readily taken up and metabolized by the body, and the nicotinamide group that's attached to it is quickly synthesized into NAD plus, artificially causing a surge in the NAD plus levels intracellularly. Now, this supplementation it's out there. You could buy it on Amazon. The question is, what is the dose, right? Well, from what I have been able to read and understand, from the dosing they were using on mice, milligrams per kilogram, the effective dose for a human being would be anywhere around 500 milligrams to 1,000 milligrams per day. Now, what I quickly realized, because if you didn't think I was going to take it, you're off your rocker. What I quickly realized was that strength is not sold. There's no manufacturer that makes that strength of nicotinamide riboside in their supplements. The highest strength that I could find was about 250 milligrams in a capsule. Well, so the body has this thing, you see it all over the place, called negative feedback loops. That is, when the body has too much of any constituent, it activates a negative feedback loop, and then you get a tolerance, or you get the body trying to get rid of it. That also happens with nicotinamide riboside and NAD+. So if you're constantly flooding the system with nicotinamide riboside and NAD+ levels are climbing, the cell's going to look for a way to get rid of it. So the conclusion that I came to, and again was supported by research, was that the best way to take nicotinamide riboside was in a pulsatile or cyclical fashion. 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. The body never gets used to it. The negative feedback loop then fails. And so you get a month's supply of the 250 milligram capsules. You can double them up and get your 500 milligram, like bare minimum studied effective dosage per day for 2 weeks, and then you run out, and you wait 2 weeks, and you start the next one. Again, that's from what I've read and synthesized for myself, and I encourage anybody to do the same. The information is out there. All right, so that basically encompasses the latest and greatest that I know of with regard to anti-aging knowledge that's out there. Again, it's painting in broad strokes. It'll give you an idea of roads to go down, things to read up on, and discuss with your physician. As always, if you like the content, go ahead and like. Don't forget to subscribe. And if there are any topics that you would like me to specifically cover, you can go ahead and write them in the comments down below. Hello YouTube, this is Dr. James C. Sullivan D.O, the Outspoken Doctor, coming back at you like a bad penny. Yeah, that was a lame delivery. Hello YouTube, this is Dr. James C. Sullivan D.O, coming back around like a bad penny. Maybe I should just get rid of